Hello, everybody. Welcome along. It's the Blue Monday post-match stream as I reduced my chair by about 2 inches there to get in the shot. For Ipswich Town 1, Gillingham 0. Joe Fairs is here with me. A late goal by Ted Bishop. And, bit of a weird one, Joe, because at half-time you would have said it was probably very good value. But in the end, we got away with one there, didn't we?
We definitely did. Like I said, the first half I put it on Twitter, but it was like a training game. I think they had one shot in the first half, and that was after literally 20 seconds that deflected behind for a corner. And then after that, we just dominated the ball without really creating brilliant chances. There was a few sort of half decent chances, which we maybe should have done better with. We've got in some decent positions. But in the second half, we just seemed to lose any tempo to our play, and they really got on top of us. And well, they created the better chances in the second half, and it's only really at the end where we seemed to actually want to try and win it that last 7 or 8 minutes where we actually pushed on a bit and led to the goal, which was a really well worked and really good goal. So
absolutely
deserving to win the game.
Here is the live league table. I know there are some games going on, but that win as it stands at whatever time we're at now, just gone 9 p.m. Puts Ipswich into third position there. 19 points from 9 games is still extremely healthy, but Luton and Hull still up ahead in the distance. If you are watching, please let us know that you can see us, hear us loud and clear. Get your comments in. We'll get to your comments in just a jiffy. We'll go through the action with Joe, and then we will get your thoughts. Right, Joe, let me just bring these teams up on the split screen. And the first thing I'd like you to do for me is that sofa score. That's obviously totally wrong. We know. Please don't write in and complain. But how did you perceive this lineup? Because I spent a lot of time looking at it in the first half, and it was very clear Andre Dazelle was sat in front of the back four. It was very clear Jack Lancaster was centrally ahead of him. Bishop was rotating. So sometimes it was 4-2-3-1. Sometimes it was 4-1-4-1. The clear idea, obviously, is Hawkins up, Edwards and Sears into support, with Chambers and Ward going outside of them. But what do you think the three central midfielders, Dazelle, Lancaster and Bishop, were actually instructed to do?
It was difficult to know because like Lancaster looked like he wanted to play as a 10, but didn't really get involved enough in sort of the key areas to get on the ball and actually make things happen. So he ended up sort of starting to drop and get too deep, and was almost on Dazelle's toes for sort of quite a bit of the game, where Bishop seemed to drop into he was the sort of player that was everywhere effectively, in that he would drop into the right back role when Chambers pushed on, drop into the left back role when Ward pushed on, and he did just get around the pitch.
For Bishop there, Joe, and you can see that completely bears out what you've just said. Sorry, continue.
Just got around the pitch well, but I think there was when you saw the team, you sort of thought this is either going to go one of two ways, and that we're either going to be able to just pull them apart and pick them apart at will with some brilliant passing and dribbling and the sort of skills those three have, or we're going to sort of get bullied a little bit in there and they're just going to take over because it was just too lightweight. And I think the first half we were decent sort of in the midfield, but in the second half, like Mick Mills on the commentary was calling for Emir Hughes for quite early, and I think that looked clearly the right thing, the thing that we needed there. We needed effectively to free Bishop up to play a little bit higher up the pitch, because the way Lancaster was playing, he wasn't getting involved, and having Bishop behind him, it didn't really free him up, so he was having to do a little bit too much running, and which isn't what he's there for.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm all for players rotating positions, especially central midfield players. But when I'm literally staring for 10, 20 minutes trying to figure out what the actual starting positions are supposed to be. It was a bit confusing. You could see Chambers and especially Ward were trying to get high, and then Bishop was trying to operate in the pockets behind. But yeah, maybe that might need a bit of work with that personnel. David Diamond would be happy with that, though. 4-4 F-2 from Gillingham, and very much 2 banks of 4 in the first half. Joe, I suppose a couple of names there we recognise in Jordan Graham and Dominic Samuel, but we will not dwell too much on Steve Evans' Wycombe team. Let me just go through a couple of bits of action, Joe, in the first half. Please keep your comments coming. We'll get to them in just a second, guys. Thank you. You can see plenty coming through already. Joe, I'll just go through the action for the first half and then we'll get your take on the half as a whole. It seemed that the chances fell to Sears. First of all, he has a drive blocked. Dazelle curls a free kick just wide of the post. I thought that was him. Yeah, it did it. And then it nestled in those nets behind the goal, didn't it? Yeah. Sears bumps Magoma into Bonham, which ultimately ends up in the keeper getting substituted. Then the one textbook big chance in the half was Ward's cross, Chambers arriving, heads it back. Lancaster, no pressure on the shooter, half volley, 8 yards middle of the goal, hits the bar. That could have changed things had that one gone in. Walsh then comes in for Bonham, so Gillingham end up with an 18-year-old who makes the inauspicious entrance, picking up a back pass for his first touch. The poor guy, I think he was a bit nervous, wasn't he? Edwards then, really good quality down the right, beats his man easily. Sears gets the shot off, but under a fair amount of pressure there. And that's pretty much all she wrote for the first half. But when we come to the second half, it's a very, very different story, Joe. Give me your read on the first half, and was it down to Gillingham just being not very ambitious and quite passive? What did we get right in the first half that we didn't get right in the second half?
Well, I think we moved the ball quicker in the first half, and we played the game in their half, if that makes sense. So the centre backs were quite high up, and we moved the ball relatively quickly, and we just didn't really give them a look in. And I don't know whether that was a case that they just didn't have the ambition to push on, or whether it was that we were just pinning their back. It's always hard to tell, but it felt like a training game. But also, you're sort of worried that whilst it was like that, we didn't really sort of create good chances. No. And also they weren't going to be as bad in the second half as they were in the first half. There was no way they were going to go into that dressing room and have Steve Evans and his giant belly tell them sort of.
Reminds me of when Danny DeVito was the Penguin. Do you know what I mean? With his big prosthetic belly.
But he wasn't going to let them play that badly in the second half and he didn't.
It's absolutely. That's the first half numbers that are so ridiculously in Ipswich's favour. Apart from, I had the Lancaster on the eye test as a big chance, but they've not gone for it there on SofaScore. Obviously, it's a half volley, maybe. I don't know. 74% possession, 9 shots, 1 on target, 4 corners. So a fairly easy one to analyse the first half, Joe. But Gillingham have a really, really good period. Sort of 55 to about 62. First of all, Akinde down the right, really poor from Ward, actually, who's a good player, but dives in. The cross goes in, and I'm thinking Marcus Stewart away at Sunderland, when he just lifted it up and over. Okay, Dom Samuel is not Marcus Stewart, but any lift on that, and he scores. Holy makes the save, doesn't he? Samuel beats McGuinness across the box. Huge chance here for McDonald on the back post there. Just doesn't get hold of the shot. There's no pressure on the shooter there at all. And then 2 headed chances as well. Why did Gillingham get so much joy, and especially down that right hand side, Joe, in those first 15 minutes of the second half?
I think they just had confidence, really. That I think that the early chance where I think they saw how sort of Ward just looked really slow, didn't he, when he went back at Akinde and then dived in. And I think that just gave them the confidence to go after him. And sort of realistically, when on Saturday at Lincoln, all the pressure was coming down Ward's side again there, and it's like, is he quite back to fitness yet? Is he pushing it? I don't know, but he did look sluggish at times back there, and I don't know whether that's just getting up and down the pitch, or that's what we're going to have when you've got a 35-year-old fullback. You are going to get beaten for pace sometimes, but Jordan Graham did just seem to, I know he was playing right midfield, but he seemed to push higher up the pitch and just really keep going at him there. And I say we were very lucky to get away without conceding there.
Towards credit, Joe, it seems that he's trying his absolute damnedest to get really high up the pitch and try and drive the team forward, isn't he? I'll bring his heat map up in a bit, but he was way forward a lot of the time. And I mean, that might be part of it, that in trying to actually drive the midfield forward, he's leaving spaces. A couple of chances for Town then after that. Bishop, not his free kick, but from a short free kick. And then Wolfenden really should score on 63. It goes loose. He sidesteps his man and just panics a little bit and puts that one
quite
over.
Get foot round it.
Yeah. He was looking to curl that into the roof of the net, wasn't he? Hawkins square here. Certain goal, but brilliant tackle by Jackson on the cover on Edwards. And then it started to get very loose and very much look like Gillingham were going to hold out for, well, at least a draw there. Dobra comes in for Freddie Sears. McGuinness heads over from a corner. Were you running out of hope as we come up to the sort of 80-minute mark, Joe?
Well, the game just seemed to be drifting to absolutely nothing at that point, didn't it? We didn't seem to have any. And if any team was going to win it from there, you'd have probably backed Gillingham more than you would have done us there.
Yes,
we didn't. We weren't really creating anything at this time. But it did seem that as soon as Hughes came on, it did just solidify us. And then at that point, we did just up the tempo a little bit, and sort of Dobra had got into the game a little bit, and Hughes came on and sort of just helped Gisela just to free up a little bit to get on the ball a bit more. And we did just seem to sort of create some more pressure at a bit higher tempo, because it only takes one ball and all of a sudden they're all off their marks and we were able to sort of create things. And we had a sort of flurry of corners about that time.
Wasn't pattern of play though, was it, Joe? It was Bishop driving or Dobra dribbling, wasn't it? It wasn't us wearing them down like I thought might be.
No.
We go into the last 10. Akinde, if he had any pace, was behind Wolfenden at one point. And then on the 85th minute, as I say, it wasn't going to be pattern of play, but it was actually a bit of quality that wins us the game in the end. Joe, ball across from the right and recycled by Ward, doesn't panic. Bishop on the edge of the box, brilliant finish, and a low percentage chance late in the game. And we get away with one, really, don't we? Take me through the goal, Joe.
Yeah, I thought it was really well taken by all three that were involved in it, in that Edwards, the ball's dropping to him in the box, and he could quite easily have tried to bring that down and have a shot, and that, but he just nods it across to Ward. Ward takes a touch, looks up, and rather than cross it, he pulls it back to Bishop, and Bishop just steps across it, left foot. It's a lovely effort, sort of curling. Keeper didn't really seem to have a chance of it, and like I say, what's that, 4 goals for Teddy in the league now in what, eight starts? I don't know. I think he's missed one game, hasn't he? But that's what you want to see from your midfield, and that's what we need to see with the way we're playing with one up front. And like I say, he's not afraid to shoot. He had that one really good effort that the keeper tipped over from the short free kick that Giselle laid to him. And I know he just seems a really confident player, and he was the one that was trying to drag us along and pick up the game by the scruff of neck at that time.
Joe, just quickly on Bishop, is there not an argument that he should, with his ability to drive, he should have been the one further forward in the midfield triangle? Or is it one of those things that we would always say about John Walk? If he was further forward, they would have seen him coming. Do you know what I mean? Is it the fact that he's further back that's allowing him to be dangerous? What do you think?
I think it's purely personnel in who's available, because I think all things being equal, you have the third player isn't Jack Lancaster, it is Flynn Downs, who sits deeper,
right,
which allows Teddy Bishop the sort of freer roll forward. And whether like John Walk used to time his runs, but Bishop can drop back in to pick up the ball, and sometimes he does need that little bit more space. But so I think it's just who is available at the moment that sort of made Teddy play a bit deeper today.
It strikes me Lambert doesn't really want to play an actual 10. That might be the reason that Lancaster did kind of keep trying to stop himself rather than getting right onto Hawkins. He ended up being closer. Joe, with that being said, there was still a huge chance for McDonald just into stoppage time. He can be 2 yards out, and he heads it against the post. And let me just bring the numbers up and see what it actually said at full time, because completely different story here. And you can see there the 2 big chances there for Gillingham both missed and hit woodwork. And by the end of the game, 8 shots inside box by both teams. So for all of that 70% possession, in terms of the actual penalty boxes, it's a tight game that's been won by a bit of real sort of quality there. Joe, before we go to the comments, please keep them coming in, guys. We'll do as many as we can after this. Joe, what's your read on the game as a whole?
I think we got away with one. Generally, I thought we had sort of more quality than them, but I think they realised that we could be got at, and they started to get at us. But for a late bit of quality showing through, I think we walk away with a 0-0 there, and you think actually we probably. I don't think we'd have been too unhappy on the balance of play with a 0-0 there. I think on the game as a whole, I think you'd be pretty disappointed with not sort of taking advantage of that first half. I think if the game had finished at 0-0, I don't think any Ipswich fans would have any complaints on the scoreline. I'm sure would have had complaints about the performance, but I don't think we could have argued with it.
Can you just speak a bit about the centre-half partnership of McGuinness and Wolfenden?
Well, it's difficult because we know they're more comfortable on the ball, but when you compared it to the Lincoln game, the amount of times Enciala and Wilson saw the ball going back to Holy was just sort of ridiculous. But it didn't really happen today. That those two were confident enough to step forward and try and play balls, and they both made a mistake. Wolfenden let Akinde get away from him. McGuinness I think it was one in the sort of towards the end where he tries to clear the ball and it ends up getting to Graham, who pulls it back. But like I say, they are not going to be as solid defensively, but they are going to offer you more on the ball than Enciala and Wilson in that regard. But I liked sort of the size of McGuinness, the way he gets up, especially at set pieces. He looked a sort of huge threat on those, and sort of just massive legs they looked. I don't know whether his shorts were too small or his socks were too small, but his legs looked huge.
Okay, you can see the ticker on the bottom, please. If you are in the stream at the moment, please hit the thumbs up button, hit like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to YouTube. These shows don't go down the normal podcast feed and won't go down the new podcast feed, so you'll only find the kind of post-game stuff over here on YouTube. And if you like, you can support the channel via Super Chat. Every little helps. Right, let's do some comments. Evening to run, Fat Boy Run, HCH 9990. Adam says few. Samuel says buongiorno. Squeaky bum tonight. James is in Plymouth. NY Sully, I'll take it. Cornish Mariner, good shot with Teddy. Dobber on his first substitute statement. Can you answer that in one word, Joe? Where do you get your knitwear?
Freeport.
Mark McGuinness wins man of the match for bringing back the short shorts and low socks combination.
Slash massive legs.
Stats not as good as normal. A lot of misplaced crosses and fewer dribbles today. Not quite as on it as earlier in the season. Hopefully win will help with confidence. A win's a win, but by God, we're boring to watch. It was a bit, wasn't it? Bit drab. Evening all. Crap's probably a little bit harsh, isn't it? But there we go. Right, we have a question, Joe. Do Town fans need to lose our arrogance towards this league? I feel our arrogance is unwanted and comes from a lack. This is from Samuel. Samuel, if you want to come back in the comments, and in what way do you think that Town fans are arrogant? We've had this levelled from other clubs, Joe, but I think a reasonable comment would be to say over the course of our history and the last 5 decades, our level has been above this league and we would hope to get out of it. I don't know. Do you think Town fans are arrogant, Joe?
I don't think it's arrogant. I think a lot of it is just frustration in that really we've got probably one of the 2 or 3 biggest budgets in the league. Our players are paid a lot more than other players in the league, and they're paid in football. In reality, is a meritocracy, so that we do have better players than most teams in this league. But if the manager and the coaching staff can't get them to knit it together, then we'll come unstuck as we did last year.
MH says Downs, Vincent Young and Drynan back, and we're looking Good. Yeah, maybe. Lancaster totally wasted in the middle. Joe?
I don't think he's wasted. I just think tonight was a very different game because of who was behind him. I think if you put Emir Hughes behind him and Andre Dazelle rather than Teddy Bishop and Andre Dazelle, I think you probably end up him getting on the ball more and being able to do a bit more. But yeah, I'm sure he'll be frustrated at how little he was able to get into the game tonight.
Can we keep going with our sole striker being just a hold-up player? Can I come back on that one, Joe? There's no point having a big. It's like we cried out for ages. We missed the physicality at up the top end, but I didn't think we used Hawkins in that way. I didn't think the ball was kind of pinged into his feet, or he came short, or he got wide players around him. And by the same token, they didn't get crosses into him. Joe, do you think that Hawkins was the victim of being at the sharp end of not very much tonight?
Yes, it just didn't. We just didn't play the ball into him. We didn't use him properly. A few times he did a decent bit of hold-up play, but I just think that Freddie Sears struggled to get around him and play well generally. And I thought Edwards got there a little bit more, but he's naturally more of a midfielder than he is a striker. So he was very isolated and was just frustrated.
Does lack of a goal threat mean an instant return for Jackson? I mean, Joe, you've spoken on this tonight previously. Where does he fit in? I mean, look, if you're not going to play into the feet and back to goal of a central striker, then maybe you could stick Jackson up there, but you'd have to play absolute total quick football and balls in behind like that. But where does he actually fit in a one up top system like that?
Well, he doesn't really, does it? But then you can use a one up top striker who's pace. You look at Jamie Vardy, for example. He's played up front on his own a lot, just running the channels, and as long as you make the intelligent runs all game and you're relentless with it, you can get away with it. But it's a very difficult role.
We all knew Steve Evans would make it hard, but thought we were always looking to score. You would hope. McGuinness had a good debut. Yeah, Fred at set plays too. We had loads of corners tonight. There needs to be some work put in here by the team in terms of creating chances from them. As tonight we let Gillingham off the hook with all of them. Yeah, I agree. Yes, it would be nicer, obviously, to capitalise on corners. I think fans hype up corners way too much, though. If you actually look at the numbers, you actually get goals from. Obviously, marginal gains and all, but I would much rather we were relying on other things. Joe, any problems with the corners?
Well, we didn't really create anything, and we had 11 or 12. So I think we do need to do a little bit more work. I mean, there didn't seem to be like the love train that England had at the the last World Cup, or there didn't seem to be any ingenuity with regards to the corners. They just knock the ball in the box and try and win something from them, where maybe we could be doing a little bit more.
I remember even when McCarthy was there and we had Waghorn taking them, Chambers saying, "Oh, we don't practice them. You know, we try and get a movement, and we know he's just going to put it in with, you know, a bit of ping into an area." So historically, a similar problem there. Felt we didn't use Hawkins enough in the game. Yeah, I totally agree, Thomas. That was the point I was making there. Steve Evans eats big dinners. I suspect he does. Terry says, "What's more worrying, lack of chances or lack of a clinical striker?" Well,
always chances.
Yeah, you can have Ian Rush up front, and if you don't create any chances, he's not going to score. So yeah, always chances. Bishop's best game in ages. Yeah, I think we'll get Joe's ideas on who came out of this with credit here. Whilst watching some of the early games, did appear that we could up our tempo at periods in games. We do appear to have lost that ability in the last few. Well, I agree. And can I extend the question, Joe? How do you do that? How do you make sure that ball's moving quickly in League One against stodgy teams sometimes?
It's difficult, but I think when you watch Andre Dazelle, the way he moves the ball at times, where he just does ping it into someone's feet, and that just gets things going. And Jack Lancaster tries to do it, and Bishop with his runs, they drive. You just need to knock them off their spots effectively, where they get themselves into their two banks of four. You just need to try and do things a little bit quicker so that spaces open up. And in fairness, I think that's what we did do from about 81 to 85 minutes until we scored the goal. That we did just try and move the ball that little bit quicker, and Dobra and a few players like that just moved it.
I just think it needs someone, assuming he's not going to play a number 10 at any point, someone in that 8 position to be an outball. So, because otherwise everything just funnels down the sides, doesn't it? And you're trying to get a fullback forward and a winger slightly inside. And that's quite easy to defend against. You can just double up and show everything outside. And yeah, I think a bit of threat the other way. Are we trying to walk it in too much? Low quality player. Is there enough variety in the attacking, Joe?
No, I think we just we end up just putting crosses in too early when there isn't really anyone to go with, because a lot of the time it ends up with wingers isolated. They've got no real option either than to turn around and pass back or just to sling a ball over. And we're not getting as many bodies in the box as we did at certain points.
And Joe, the other thing with that system and that personnel at the moment is if they can exploit territory and you've got Chambers or Ward as a spare man on the back post, they'll beat most opposition fullbacks in the air, won't they? So
that did happen for Lancaster's chance, didn't it? Where Ward sort of that was a good little bit of football, and all of a sudden Ward is going in. I think it was Lancaster that sees him, releases him. Chambers bombs in from his flank, and then the ball drops back down to Lancaster, who hits the bar.
Will Lambert's absence from the touchline make a difference given his likely COVID? Well, look, we don't know anyone guessing anything about COVID really well. You can have all the information and still be completely wrong about COVID, and we've got none of the information other than he's a contact of who's actually tested positive, Joe?
Matt Gill.
So he's a contact of Matt Gill. That doesn't mean he's got it though, and this disease is weird.
Has he not shown symptoms in order to have a test? I don't know.
Matt Gill has tested positive. Lambert will now be a contact. So if you've been in contact with someone who's tested positive, you're supposed to then isolate if you work at a football club, then until you can provide a negative test. Whereas if you've actually had it and shown symptoms,
is it just a precautionary measure?
Yeah. So
Lambert has reported symptoms this morning.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Well, a negative test kills all, doesn't it? So we'll see. We'll see what happens with him. I was thinking though, Joe, empty stadium, just moving up from the dugout to the director's box. That didn't feel much of a punishment anyway, did it? In an empty stadium. Do we feel a sense of deja vu with last season? Flattering to see most of the time. I think that's a yes from me, Joe.
Well, I up until. So obviously the last couple of defeats are one thing, but tonight's game felt like one of those last season ones where we don't play pretty well and we nick a 1-0 and it sort of papers over cracks. That did really have a tinge of last season's about it.
Alex is in La Reina, Chile. Nice. Couldn't really watch properly because of the game on my phone. I was teaching English class. I looked a great first half and the opposite in the second. I think you got it. Alex was going to watch on the morning commute across Sydney, just followed on Twitter. Nice.
All these people in these hot places.
Yeah, there you go. Samuel, who was asking about the arrogance, I mean, our expectancy perception that we have. Oh, okay, that's a fair comment. I thought it was that we were in some way a bigger club in this league, which we are. But yeah, I think a few truths about the quality of some of the players will come home to roost this season, Joe.
And it's just, again, I obviously we follow Ipswich more than other teams, so we don't know, but just the levels of injuries. You look at the players that were unavailable for tonight's game, and it's just ludicrous, really, isn't it? When you see just up in a striking sort of capacity, Norwood, Jackson, Drinnan, then you sort of they're all unavailable. Nolan, Downs, Judge, Scouse. It's just silly, Young. Really, and that is Vincent Young, obviously a massive loss. That's what sets us apart from most teams at this level. The quality that we have 20, 22 sort of quality senior players. You look at someone like Gillingham, that, like I say, their keeper gets injured. They bring an 18-year-old on for the debut. If our keeper gets injured, we bring in someone who got promoted from League Two last year, who's highly rated. So I mean that in order for our squad, especially in this really compact season, to show the quality and that we've got and actually allow that to give us an advantage, we need to keep people fit.
Daniel says McGuinness and Wolford are definitely the way forward. Do you agree, or does Wilson come back, or Toto?
Well, Wolfenden has got a start, hasn't he? I know it's sort of his first game back, and I wouldn't say it was his best game, but you've just got to get him in the team, full stop. And I think Wilson's sort of can sort of see himself as unlucky to be dropped, but he was the one that dropped straight from the starting 11 to not even on the bench. So he's obviously seen as behind Toto in the pecking order. And for me, you just keep Toto as far away from the team as you can.
Alex says the ball for Edwards from Hawkins. So how did that not end up in the back of their net? I think you have to hold your hands up and say that's a good tackle. Maybe he sees the tackle coming, taps it to the side and tries to draw a foul. But I think it's good defending.
A bit of handball on it as well. I think as he slid over the ball, I think it sort of he got away with one a little bit there. But yeah, that was a brilliant bit of defending.
Bowles, Kane Vincent-Young. When and if? When are we going to see him again?
It's basically been a year now, isn't it? I know It was a year to the day since we beat Southend. I think that was the game when he went off injured and he made an aborted comeback after that. But, well, it's just when can you rely on him to be back?
Best thing tonight was seeing Jimmy Walker wearing goalie gloves on the touchline. There was that video doing the rounds of Nick Anelka scoring at Wembley wearing goalie gloves, just casually running
is that
away.
A COVID thing having to wear gloves? Because Steve Evans was wearing gloves.
I don't know.
I don't know if he just come from the nearest.
Steve Evans has probably got like Twix fingers or something inside his gloves, or extra lunchbox, isn't it? Did Lambert get himself sent off the weekend just to avoid having to go anywhere near Steve Evans?
Well, I heard something interesting today about Steve Evans and Lambert, and it was basically saying that when Steve Evans was out of work before he went to Gillingham, he was doing a bit of scouting for Lambert and was quite instrumental in Thomas Holy actually joining Ipswich. So they obviously had a relationship at that point, and then it's obviously gone totally to pot since then. And it was a case of, obviously we miss all this, but Steve Evans, all in his press conferences while Gillingham were doing well, saying there's teams in this league that have much bigger budgets than us that should be going straight up, and we're competing with them. Sort of, it was just a dig at Ipswich. Apparently, nearly every press conference he did last year. But they obviously had a big fallout about where they were from in Glasgow, wasn't it? But
was Freddie told to play a bit deeper rather than on the shoulder of the last wide defender? Michael, I think that's first of all a result of how high Ward managed to get, and that Sears could actually manage to come inside. But then that wasn't really balanced on the other side. It felt Sears was inside, Ward was 15 yards further ahead than Chambers, and then Edwards was. So I think it's just a bit of a lack of balance for much of that first half, particularly. Matthew, I know Matthew Keane, a keyboard player, yeah. Too many kids inexperienced tonight. Why leave it so late to bring on Hughes, Joe?
I think we have to give the benefit of the doubt to sort of Stuart Taylor in that he is an assistant manager who's having to step up. He hasn't got Paul Lambert by his side. He hasn't got Matt Gill by his side. So he's there on his own, and probably, I don't know, it's difficult for, I suppose, for him to make the bigger calls, especially when we haven't gone behind. So I think you just got to give him credit for making the right decision in the end and it helping us get across the line.
Rich, what needs to change to get a result at Sunderland next week? More direct to exploit Hawkins. Certainly needs to be more of that and more variety in the attacking plays, doesn't it, Joe?
Yep, especially when the fullbacks get the ball. I think, like when Chambers Ward gets the ball, there's no reason why you don't hit a diagonal into Hawkins and try and get one of the wide players and one of the midfielders pushing on around him. But I don't think we're going to see that midfield free away at the Stadium of Light.
No. Will we ever have a plan B, or is Lambert too stubborn to change? Is plan A actually sorted yet, Joe?
Well, plan A, I think plan A is just the formation rather than the style at the moment, and the sort of the personnel, and we try and mix it up in that formation. But I think the problem is, as I've sort of said previously, is that the manager's going into a season trying to effectively embed a new style of play and start a new cycle with us effectively, when he's in a very precarious position with his job because of what he's done previously, where had this been last season, where you can see we're trying to implement this 4-3-3 and we're trying to do it and we're trying to play it from the back and there's bumps in the road, I think he'd have had a lot more leniency and a lot more rope from the supporters, where now it's just difficult. We've got to keep winning, and that's the most important thing. But also, he's been told he's got to sort of implement this style of football, which he's doing. So,
Do you think a crowd would have helped or hindered with exactly the same game state and Gillingham peppering our goal from minute 55 to 63? Hindered, I think. I think that would have got a bit grumbly inside Portman Road, wasn't it?
The Suffolk moan would have been in full display.
Forward. Does Sergio Giorgini have an outlet store at Freeport? I think he's got two, hasn't he, Joe?
I am no comment.
Not sure about the pace of our centre backs. Wolfie looked short of pace tonight. A genuine concern was just out of position a few times. Noticed a shortness of pace there. I suppose when Akinde went in behind, but
he did,
I think
he did get back, didn't he? Never bite him.
Yeah. Where are we going next? Couple more. Thank you, everybody. Bits is here. Had to go lay down for a while. That was hard to watch.
Is that after all the excitement?
Yeah, there you go. Take the 1-0. Yeah. Glad we got the 3 points. Always think we have a mental fragility about us when things ain't going well. Well, I totally agree with that point, Joe. We've talked about. If we had gone behind in that one, or they had got an equaliser, I think. And this, Joe, this goes back a little bit to that deja vu of last season and big moments, big games, not being able to do the job, right?
Yeah, but we've hung about in the. When we're not playing well, we've managed to hang about in the game and then score a late goal, which late goals do just breed confidence, don't they? So fingers crossed they can start
Ian
something.
says, how can we trust a manager who one season says any player should be able to play anywhere and next season only has one plan and won't change? Tell us in the comments, Ian. Was Dobra right? Was Dobra right to stay put, given he's had minutes? Now, could you see Dobra maybe in the sort of inverted winger in off the left-hand side, Joe?
I think that's probably going to suit him more than the right-hand side. But yeah, I think it's a good point that he stayed because he wanted to get into the team here. And I know it's taken a suspension, but he's sort of found his way onto the bench. He's came on it today ahead of Keenan Bennett. So fair play to him. Hopefully it's a sign, and he does get more games.
Phil, the two young centre halves don't give me so many behind the sofa moments than when Toto plays. Lovely. Do you reckon Lambert watched the game on iFollow? I reckon if I was Lambert, I would have I'd gone out for a meal or something. Yeah, they got it there. They got it fixed up, haven't they? Apparently he was, according to Brent, though, Joe. Yes.
I think they have like a chairman's login, so I'm sure Marcus gave him his code.
Oh, Marcus. It's like that, is it? Eh? Drop Freddie and play Lancaster on the wing for me. Lancaster, I thought, playing well in the middle, but would have played. Yeah, I think we all agree with. Not necessarily about the drop Freddie bit, but I certainly agree about the that it didn't work quite so well in the middle, and he was neither a number 10 or a number or a wide player, was he? Which why Dobra didn't go in the middle and swap with Lancaster. And again, I think it's the kind of refusal to play a number 10, isn't it, Joe? Let's just bring up that table one more time. If I scroll, there are still live games there, and it is Sunderland away, as Richard said. Is that right? At the weekend,
no,
Joe?
Crew at home on Saturday.
Crew at home.
Sunderland away on Tuesday.
Beg your pardon. So third position there, where we've got live games going on: Pompey, Sunderland, Plymouth, Doncaster. The silly thing is, Joe, it's going to be conversations we've had 1,000 times already on the podcast about, well, in the current state, that's still 2 points per game. Can you foresee one of those horrible 3 points in 9 games runs coming at any point?
No, because I think too many teams in this league have been hammered by COVID so much that there was a big gap between the top 8 and everyone else last year, and unfortunately we sort of ended up falling into the everyone else category. But it did just seem that as long as you're not the sort of top 8, I think they've widened the gap as well between them and the rest of the league over the sort of COVID times where teams have had to basically start again.
Wonderful. Right, a couple more comments, and then Ian has come back actually there. I wouldn't trust Lambert as far as I could throw Steve Evans. There you go. Crazy long away day for a Tuesday. That's Sunderland one. Yeah, are they going to kick that off at 7 or 5?
It's 7. Yeah, I don't know what I don't know what the travelling arrangements are like. I know sort of people talk about pampered footballers, but I was driving for Ipswich at 9:45 on Saturday morning, and I saw the coaches go to pick the players up to go to Lincoln. And it's like, so you're leaving to get to Lincoln at 10 a.m. You're probably getting there at 1:30. Sort of have to get off the coach, stretch, warm up, then play the game. And I say, I'm sure in any normal season, that's an overnight stay on the Friday. You get up, you stretch your legs, you go for a walk, and it's. I don't know what the stats are this year, but we've got a 100% record at home, and I think there's going to be a lot of home wins this season because the away teams are just having to prepare in a very different and difficult way. And Sunderland, realistically, we're probably going to travel up there that morning and probably have to spend. The players are going to have to spend what 5, 6, 7 hours on a coach.
Ouch. Ouchie indeed. Right, we'll wrap up in a sec. If you want a shout out, just stick it in the comments now and we'll shout you out. Saying on the pod, not being streetwise enough. Did they go out and enjoy? I was going to say, if so I'm sure Steve Evans will make mention that Freddie Sears did a hatchet job on the keeper indirectly through a centre back. But yeah, there you go. Right. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining us here tonight on the post-game stream. Thank you, as ever, for all of your comments. It was Ipswich 1. Crikey, who did we play? Gillingham. Seems a long time ago. Gillingham 0. And I think Joe and the comments say still rather unconvincing, let's just say. Joe, any last words before we go to the outro?
No, thanks everyone for listening and for your comments. It's been good to chat about the game.
And we will see you all very soon. Thanks for watching. And over and out from me and over and out from Joe.